Hello and welcome. My name is Myre and welcome back to another roadmap roundup, this time for the August the 11th, 2021. Apparently, according to the one and only Roadmaster Jake Acapella himself, this one is a bit of a big one. So let's go ahead and get right into it, shall we? Alright, so roadmap roundup, happy Wednesday everyone. Oops. And that was Windows. Roadmap Roundup, happy Wednesday everyone. Every 2 weeks we accompany the roadmap update with a brief explanatory note to give you insight into the decision making that led to any changes. This is part of an effort to make our communications more transparent, more specific, and more insightful for all of you who help make the SC and Squadron 42 possible. With this published, we're extending the horizon of the progress tracker to Q2 of 2022. I can see why it's a large one because, of course, we get a whole new quarter of information. We're also planning to add a column to Alpha 3.18 soon. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into this week's Roadmap Roundup. Alright, so that's from the community team, but written again by Jake Bradley. Let's go ahead and see. So, notable changes for August the 11th, 2021. So, progress tracker, live mission content team. So you'll notice on the progress tracker that there are a few new names on the team roster, and this is indicative of some internal team changes that have occurred recently. Historically, content produced by Star Citizen location teams, Modular LZ, MTL, and Modular, have been comprised of environmental art and level design disciplines. This is changing moving forwards, adding the mission design discipline as well as adding additional support from the AI content team to the locations pipeline. They'll be working together with level design and art to bring spaces to life with moment-to-moment gameplay. Okay, so by bringing spaces to life here and mission design, one can only imagine that they're talking about like cities and stuff like that, and actually putting like content within those things. Remember how Levski, when it was around, had like, 75% of its like explorable space being within the station, but not necessarily having anything to do shop-wise or anything like that. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what exactly comes out of that for sure. Okay, so this means that the live mission content team is no longer its own team and is instead integrated into the locations teams, including the deliverables. The live mission content team's data will now end in Q3 2021, but will be maintained on the roadmap as a reference. Alright. So, location teams, the new names. So, the existing location teams on the roadmap have also gotten new names. So, the Landing Zone 1 content team has been renamed to EU Landing Zone. MTL Modular has been renamed to MTL Sandbox. I'm not sure what MTL stands for. And then Modular has been renamed to EU Sandbox 1. So MTL stands for Montreal. Thank you, Jake. So that's the new Montreal team that's up there in, of course, Montreal. That the last we heard about them, the first time we heard about this new Montreal team, they were going to be working on the new planet stuff. We saw that they were recruiting people for that. So it looks like it's now going to be all part of that, and including landing zone stuff. And, with what we've seen with like Crusader and what we've seen with Horizon, it does seem like there are plans to put quite a bit of like actual meaningful gameplay within this place. They made the hospitals? Yes, they did, yeah. So there will also be a new team added to the roadmap very soon named EU Sandbox 2, so yet another sandbox team. Keep an eye out for them in a future publish. Okay, so on the progress tracker, newly added deliverables. So targeting V2 has been added. So expansion of the targeting system to support missiles with improved management of targets for both the pilot and the crew of the ship. So missile targeting. Interesting. I mean, like with what we have with the new missile operator mode, of course they've changed what the HUD looks like for all that stuff. It seems like they have plans to keep changing and updating targeting to get it to where it needs to be. If we go ahead and we check out the progress tracker for targeting V2, if it is on the roadmap just yet, and it is indeed, we can go and see when exactly it is scheduled for. So it is scheduled for that Q2 of 2022 over there. So The next is plasma ammunition. So further work on this damage type will cause damage over time to actors, vehicles, and ships. So plasma is that kind of like acidic, kind of like you know, like a sizzling effect that you see in things like Halo, but this is supposed to actually be like a DOT kind of thing that you might be aware of in like MMOs and that kind of thing. So larger weapons of this type will also leave behind a hazard, causing further damage to anything in close proximity to it. This will fulfill the original vision we had for the plasma weapons we already have in game, and those we have planned for the future. So this is cool because they mentioned discussing this several years ago about like how there's ballistic weapons, how there are laser weapons, and how there are plasma weapons, and how in the future they wanted to maybe perhaps look into see if they could change plasma and make it into something unique. So by making plasma weapons this thing that leaves a hazard behind, something that so you can like close up a hallway and stuff so people have to wait until like the hazard is over, is pretty cool. There are several plasma weapons in game right now that just function as your typical laser weapon. I think that the Devastator shotgun is a plasma weapon technically, and so it'll be very interesting to see that you know, have this new effect attached to it. So not only as a shotgun is, you know, would it have like a high you know, damage output, but also when you hit somebody with full armor, you're also going to erode that armor as well. Which makes me think, are there plans to make physicalized damage for ships also for player armor as well? They have this thing where they want to like make everything systemic from like, you know, the top down, things like IFCS, which is like, you know, in-flight computer system that you have for like your ships and you have for like your missiles, and they want to bring down to your player. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if things like this, and you know, like it wouldn't surprise me if like the sign distance field shields that we have as well for ships gets boiled down to like a player level soon, you know, especially since, you know, with Death of a Spaceman and all that kind of stuff, a longer time to kill is probably a better thing, as long as they don't make the gameplay too much like how Elite Dangerous did. It's on foot combat, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. So Incendiary Ammo, okay, alright, so more in the ammo pile. So this is a new ballistic projectile that burns on impact, causing the target to take damage over time and potentially causing items in the environment to catch fire. Now this would be really cool to see it actually tie into the fire system we know that they're working on as well, so that depending on the environment you're in, if you use incendiary ammo, you can actually like set somebody's ship on fire. It wouldn't surprise me if these two forms of ammunition will be the go-to for people who are trying to board somebody else's ship and cause as many hazards as possible as they're doing it. Or maybe not, you know, like, because you're gonna be in the fire too. But yeah, that's really cool. They've talked about like weapon and component and bullet like changing and stuff within your magazines for your ballistic weapons is kind of like one of the things you can do for a ballistic weapon that's different from a laser. With a laser, you can, you know, you can recharge the batteries, and that's kind of its thing. With ballistics, you can choose what kind of ammunition complement you have. So like with one, like a I guess like a P4 AR, for instance, you could make it half incendiary, you could make it like a, you know, full ballistic or whatever. It wouldn't surprise me if other ones also make its way in, you know, like armor penetrating and that kind of thing. But as long as, you know, like they balance it so it's rarer or that kind of thing. Alright, so Disarray ammunition. So this is a new charged ballistic projectile that emits electromagnetic pulses. Okay, helping to not only damage the target, but also disrupt power systems. So now with the whole balancing of FPS, if they decide to make heavy armor even heavier, once things like Titan armor comes in, you know, like the full exoskeleton combat armor and stuff comes in, you will need new ways of making sure that these tanks do not like over dominate things. So having disarray ammunition and stuff like that sounds kind of cool. How you'd implement it in the game, I guess we'll have to wait and see how they do it. Of course, it doesn't necessarily say here that it's just for on foot. Disarray ammunition can make its way into other things as well, I imagine. Excuse me. But we'll have to wait and see there. I could imagine things like, let's say, the scalpel sniper rifle using disarray ammunition for that. So like from a distance, you can like headshot somebody who's wearing heavy armor and then can completely blind them. We know that they want to like revisit helmet visors and that kind of thing. Back in like 2.x, if people remember that, helmets and stuff used to have like occlusion areas. If you were wearing like any of the marine helmets and stuff, there'd be a brim. You could like see that brim. If you're wearing something that like super heavy armor, then like it's even more occluded. You have things nowadays like the Defiance helmet from Grim Hex, which is like a complete mask with like no visors, no eye holes, whatever. So like one would imagine that they're seeing through a virtual screen, like with the Teverin stuff. So like shooting somebody in the head with one of those should, you know, if not kill them, at least, you know, like turn the lights out for a bit. But yeah. So disarray ammunition was that. So next, space mines. So this is a very important one for the Nautilus. Without the space mines, the Nautilus is just another reclaimer. So yeah, in space, players in certain ships will gain the ability to release different types of space mines in a coordinated fashion, in an attempt to trap, damage, and capture enemies or set up defensive perimeters. So they keep saying here certain ships, obviously because they don't want it to just make it a Nautilus-specific thing, but I do wonder if, by saying certain ships, if there are plans of making more than the Nautilus capable of doing it now, or if there are plans of, I guess, making existing ships be able to deploy mines at some point, but of course with the Nautilus being the one that's designed to do it, you know, the best. Then we have save load. So this feature will handle the creation of the save system across Squadron 42, including player data, checkpoints, and UI. Part of the system will also store the load dynamic entities, NPC positions, and data associated with old containers or object containers. So just really quickly, I want to see something. I want to go ahead and check the progress tracker and look for space mines and see whereabouts that is right now, and maybe perhaps how soon we can expect it. So again, space mines here are a deliverable for Q2 of 2022. So with this coming all the way until the end of the projected quarter of next year, I wouldn't expect the Nautilus anytime soon in that case. What about ammunition though? So ammunition, if we check this, so disarray ammunition and incendiary ammunition are also things that are projected for much later. However, mag stripping and mag refill, which is something that will, you know, like tie into things like incendiary and disarray ammunition, is something that has been like put in the scheduler here much earlier, and we're in fact past that now. So even without these two specialist ammos, maybe perhaps in a patch soon TM, we might actually see mag stripping and mag refill coming into it. Alright, so next is aerodynamic control surfaces. Alright, so like ailerons and that kind of stuff, so that like when you're in atmosphere, you don't have to use your thrusters per se to actually roll. You just use those control surfaces like a real plane and do stuff. If, of course, your ship is shaped like a plane and not a brick, like the Aurora. So ships with control surfaces will be able to use them in atmospheres to aid their maneuverability. This will allow for improved performance from ships that have weak maneuvering thrusters in atmosphere, and brings new depth to aerodynamic flight in-game. So my thought here is that as the game has kind of progressed, and where we are right now in the game, with how like it's mainly just your thrusters being used in order to do things like roll even in atmosphere, it seems to me as if CIG hasn't really decided to I guess fake control surfaces and just make it thruster based, and make it so that like well, when you're down in atmosphere, it's not going to give you what your turn rates should be with these control surfaces. Rather, we have to wait for the control surfaces to work. So it'd be really interesting to see if that's the case, and like if things like the Arrow, things like the Saber, things like the Eclipse will be much more maneuverable down in atmosphere once this comes in. I'm not necessarily sure if the Talon you know, for instance, has control surfaces like in the conventional sense. It has like those weird trailing things on the back, but do you think they'll do that? It'll be very interesting to see, because the Talon is super maneuverable. And I think that's because, you know, it doesn't need these things, and so it's just programmed to fly as if it, you know, like it's an alien ship that doesn't need no, like, control surfaces. Yeah, like flaps and ailerons and stuff. Crusader Genesis Starliner. Man, so, like, this is one of the ships that I've been looking forward to. Obviously with all its gameplay intact and stuff like that, so that's sometime later, of course, but this is like, I used to do a lot of like commercial flights and stuff like that, and Elite Dangerous and things like that, so being able to do that in Star Citizen with like proper RP and that stuff, like in first person with players around you, being able to use voice over IP and that kind of stuff would be really cool. So building, implementing, and balancing Crusader's passenger transport, the Genesis Starliner. So let's go ahead and check the thing here for the Genesis Starliner real quick. So the Genesis Starliner is, I would not be surprised if this was a 2022 project. It says right here, yeah, 2022, June of Q2. So it's a very small looking sliver of June as well. So because how this roadmap works, again, is that, so like they only give us up to like the end of a quarter. And like, you know, when it gets to this kind of part here, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's only going to take like, you know, half a month to make the ship. It just basically means that it starts here and like work will continue until it's done. But yeah. These three vehicles are getting a concept pass. Got to bring them to current metrics. Which three ships? Oh, right, the ones that oh, here, okay. So so the RSI Orion, so building, implementing, and balancing the RSI's mining platform, the Orion, as a flight-ready vehicle. So it does not really surprise me all that much that the Orion is coming so soon. The Orion is the mining capital ship. And, you know, like, CIG have already said that mining as a gameplay loop in and of itself is something that they think is in a very good place. So it doesn't surprise me that it's in such a good place that they kind of want to run the entire gamut of like capital down to personal. And so let's go ahead and see where the Orion currently stands. Not Orion, right here. So Q2 2022, April until mid-May. So again, this is likely going to be, I'm not sure exactly what patch this is tied to here, like maybe 3.18 or something. But like, yeah, this is likely going to be for that over there next year to look forward to. And then the RSI Link. So the RSI Lynx is like a luxury ground vehicle of sorts, right? So again, building and implementing the Lynx as a game-ready vehicle. Let's see, last but not least, let's have a look at it. So the RSI Lynx actually is not on the deliverables thing at the moment. Now this could be a bug. The Roundup pretty much just came out, so sometimes it takes a while to populate. Alright, so these deliverables are being temporarily removed from the progress tracker as the location teams calibrate their planning after the aforementioned changes. So cutting, once again, has been moved. So cutting, again, the freeform cutting of chain link fences and stuff, and other things like component hatches and stuff that you might see this technique being used in like Squadron 42. Charge and drain, so batteries and things like that for like your Moby-Glass, not your Moby-Glass, but maybe your Moby-Glass in the future, your multi-tool, things like that, energy weapons. Ground vehicles, V2. I don't recall what ground vehicles V2 was, probably just like making them work better. The Akiro cluster. I'm not sure if the Akiro cluster was the asteroid belt in the Nyx system, I forget. The ground scramble race. Scramble races is cool, but, you know, like, kind of scuffed. So, it's whatever. Reputation gates for missions, now that sucks. again, it's been removed from the progress tracker, but this does not necessarily mean that it's being removed forever. It's just that the teams involved with these things are moving house, moving places, and they need to kind of like go, okay, we're now this team, what are we working on? So we'll likely see all these things kind of like resurface once those teams have settled down. Then counterfeiting and data download mission. Okay. So counterfeiting and data download mission, interesting. So I know that they were talking about before about like hacking and how they wanted to change hacking with this like 3D Pac-Man basically mini game. Data download mission was likely going to be part of that. Counterfeiting, I don't recall. Then these deliverables were previously taken off the progress tracker and are now returning. So dynamic population, ladders tier 1, and actor status tier 2. So actor status tier 2 of all those things is probably the most interesting thing there, because actor status involves so much of the player character and NPCs. It's everything from, you know, like the survival mechanics like hunger and thirst, to things like being poisoned, things like things that will really be necessary to have like a meaningful impact and change and effect to 3.15. So let's go ahead and check the progress tracker and see where that's slated for. So actor status tier 2 is again resurfacing here for Q2 of 2022, and it says here, so actor status tier 2 looks at a variety of new elements such as hygiene, NPC status tracking, multiple bytes, DNA integrity, medical insurance, cybernetic limbs, and cloning. So actor status tier 1 kind of covers more of the things that I said would be more or less necessary for 3.15. These do seem to be like much more higher concept things, like again, multiple bytes and being able to track those. With medical gameplay, you'll be able to have a medical scanner to look at somebody. I believe initially you'll be able to see like broken bones and that kind of stuff with a 3D model. So being able to see multiple bytes because they want to be introducing more creatures to the game makes sense and is kind of cool. Cybernetic limbs and cloning are all part of the medical gameplay, like I guess, end game, as it were, with your DNA breaking down, because like when you make a clone, or when you register a clone, that clone has to register a clone. When that clone dies, before that clone dies, that clone has to register a clone, so you get like this JPEG compression of your human because I guess UEE law or something. But yeah, all that. And of course, NPC status tracking, because even the NPCs are supposed to have all these things, and when they get turned into virtual NPCs, when that all gets boiled down into quanta and stuff like that, then even the NPCs will be as in-depth and detailed as the player. And then hygiene, if you need a shower. And that's that. So yeah, ladders, you know, like currently we have like clipping to ladders, and that sucks. So I guess a new system for being able to interact with those ladders. And then dynamic population. Dynamic population is here on the roadmap, and this is starting work at the beginning of October and is scheduled all the way up until the end of May of next year. So it would not surprise me if on October the 9th we will see some indication of what this means or what progress they've made. The description here is all milestones that need to be passed in order to implement dynamic populations in various locations around the verse. This means, of course, NPC populations, and this means, of course, like, you know, if you're going to Levski, and no players go to Levski because nobody wants to go to Levski. I don't know if maybe they would do, maybe they don't. But depending on if they do or don't, then like the population there will be, you know, more or less, more affluent or poorer, you know, like and that kind of thing. They talked about like a NPC procedural generation stuff as well. So like based on a whole bunch of lore parameters as well, you will see like NPCs of like different races and that kind of stuff based on their heritages and that kind of thing in the Stanton system, especially with like the like around Yella and with the Ninetales pirates. A lot of them have like Japanese surnames, so you might see more Japanese, like I guess, looking characters like genetically and that kind of stuff when this system comes in and that kind of thing. Alright, so release view. So from the progress tracker and into the cards, let's go ahead and have a look and see what release view is going to be like. So it says here that 315 we're getting these changes. So New Babbage Hospital. So 315 is the next patch that'll be coming in about 1 or 2 months, in 2 months time or more. So let's see, New Babbage Hospital, implementation of a working hospital located in New Babbage, where players can be healed and revived, as well as purchase medical supplies and life insurance. So again, life insurance is an active status tier 2 thing, which is slated for like next year. Or at least, you know, like the finalized version of it, or I guess the, not the finalized version, the tier 0 implementation version of it is at least written down on the roadmap for being next year, but you might be able to see like some beginnings of it when this kind of comes around in 315. Yeah, like whatever that'll entail. Orison Hospital, so the implementation and working of a working hospital located in Orison where players can be healed and revived, as well as purchase medical supplies and life insurance again. So we've seen the interiors of these two hospitals. They exist in-game right now. They're also implementing the rest stops hospitals as well. So if you do not necessarily want to have to make your way out of Orison, you know, like as beautiful as it is, or out of New Babbage, you can also register at a hospital in a space station instead and save yourself the 5 or 6 minutes of cinematic travel. So yeah, where they can be healed and purchase medical supplies and stuff. Grim Hex will also be seeing its Grim Hex clinic as well. And then loot generation tier 0, so implementing the systems to make loot containers throughout the persistent universe, so crates, lockers, and boxes that contain dynamically populated randomized loot. So that'd be cool because, of course, with 315, not only are you going to be able to loot stuff, but your character is going to be disconnected from their like bag of holding, their global inventory. That'll all be back at base. So now you're going to have this cool survival loop of going out, finding something, and having to bring it back and either selling it or, you know, once persistent habs come in, decorate your hab with all your findings and stuff like that. I really do hope that they make some sort of like trading app, like some sort of auction house, that kind of thing, so you can buy and sell stuff with friends or that kind of thing. Because where we are in the alpha right now, because not necessarily there aren't things that you can work towards really without like reputation unlocks and that kind of thing, being able to buy and sell like rare doohickeys to decorate your ships from other people would be, I guess, the next best thing. Asset Manager Mobiglass app. So in support of localized inventories, the Asset Manager keeps track of all player-owned items, where they're stored and where they need to go to pick up, transfer, and equip them. And that app is called Knickknacks, I believe, and that's just going to be the new building blocks version of the current PMA, the interface for stuff for your character. Then we have a physical local inventory support, so adjusting shops and VMA to support the required API changes for players' local physical inventory. So some of the transaction code will also be refactored, and several additional debugging options are being added so that we can identify problems and resolve bugs faster. The VMA will be updated so a player can only adjust their ship's loadout if they are in a location where they are currently storing other ship-related items. Okay, so you'll have to have like a hangar or something there. I mean, like, I don't think persistent hangars are coming in with 315. I need to scroll down, but yeah, it's saying that the VMA, so your vehicle management application or whatever it's called, will be updated so the player can only change your vehicle loadout if the item that you want to put on your ship is in the place that you want to put it makes sense, essentially. So choosing a home base, sticking around there and making sure all your stuff is there is also going to be a pretty important thing. You're going to see orgs and stuff like that, I feel, even as soon as 315 comes out, decide where they want to be, so that if there are any issues, like let's say somebody's trying to lock down Port Olisar and that kind of thing, but it's now locking down some other random station, you know, you'll have friends there in order to help you out, like from the get-go. Then you have Infiltrate and Defend missions. Okay, so underground facilities are the first place to benefit from the addition of spawn closets, which allow us to expand the suite of missions taking place there. So missions range from all-out assaults to situations where you may be able to complete objectives without the need to engage in combat at all, and include both lawful and unlawful variants. So this is kind of like a almost like we've gone full circle now with the Hurston reveal with the Clovis Darnley mission where Chris and Todd Pappy were on stage, and Chris was like, this is kind of boring, maybe we should make it so the NPCs come when you're actually there, and this is that now. They couldn't have done it sooner because, like with CIG, they don't want to just spawn NPCs on your head. The NPCs have to come from somewhere, so this is going to be that now coming into fruition. So then updates. So broken moon map. So they're going to be updating that broken moon map, one of the original Arena Commander maps, by increasing the overall size. That's good. I mean, like, it's like what? Not 90 kilometers in diameter. It's a bit bigger than that, maybe. It's not big, but it's going to be bigger now. Adding new playable areas and more cover options and new space assets. Okay, looking forward to that. Especially with like new scanning and stuff like that, scanning and how they want scanning to be as, you know, like an actual part of combat and stealth and that kind of thing. It makes sense to expand these maps to make those components a meaningful thing even in Arena Commander, because AC isn't supposed to be like, you know, just a closed off thing where you just like you find somebody and you shoot them. It's supposed to be a test bed for other mechanics within the greater universe. So being able to utilize as many of these features as possible, so scanning and stuff, is for the best. So shops and patrons. So we had this on the monthly report that we read, them doing that like a new motion capture thing for this. So they vastly expanding the interactive usables needed for an assortment of shops, and patrons will be populating dozens of shops with the vendor behavior previously seen in the bartender. Okay, this still includes coffee stand, pizza bar, kiosks, and more. So does that mean we'll finally see pizza in the pizza bar? Because I'm still looking forward to getting this deployable pizza box where like you can put it on a table and then friends can take a slice each or whatever, just so that, you know, only one person needs to like have the item and that kind of thing, and so you can better serve people, I guess, and so that food is a bit easier to access, you know, like in real life. But that's interesting. I guess that's probably one of the reasons why they haven't like redone any of the voices for the shop clerks, you know, like the "Hi, welcome to the store," you know, that kind of stuff, because this is coming in. Although I really do hope that this will completely replace that crap, because I hate it to death. So doctor, nurse, AI behaviors. So when the player respawns in the medical bed, they'll be greeted by a doctor with dialogue and a nurse that can be seen in the background interacting with various medical themed usables. The medical tray, the IV drip, and inspecting the medicine cabinet. This will add life and movement to the patient's room when he awakes. Injured players that enter the room will also be greeted by the doctor and encouraged to heal themselves in the medical bed. Interesting, it's like a whole voiceover kind of thing. So a bit of a departure from hello and welcome to Clasher Rehabilitation Facility. It's gonna be like, oh, so you're finally awake. Here, have some drugs. But yeah, that's cool, that's cool. So Orion V2, so this feature originally slated for Q4 has been moved up to the release of 3.15. So that's pretty interesting. That's like, we don't usually get things being, you know, moved up. It's normally things being delayed, but it does seem as if Orion's like additional pieces are coming early. The Montreal team and the EU-PU like team seem to be maybe perhaps working pretty hard, pretty fast. So that would be here. If we scroll down, Orion V2, so improving Crusader's landing zone with more shops and expanding various services around the city. Whatever those services are, we don't necessarily know, but we do know that Orion V2 was supposed to also bring us the Crusader showroom, which they showed off in ISC. So that'd be kind of cool. All right. So that was that for... that it got lost, V2. So Area 18 Hospital. So implementation of a working hospital located in Area 18. Okay, so and Lorville with Maria Purify. So that's for 316 is Area 18's hospital. So with 315 we're getting new Babbage, we're getting Grimhex, we're getting Horizon. So Microtech, Microtech Crusader. With 316, we're getting Arc Corps Hospital. And with 317, we're getting Lorville's Hospital, so a Hurston-based hospital in Myre Pure of Heart. So Area 18 Hospital and Myre Pure of Heart are kind of big whatevers because they have mentioned earlier that they want the orbital stations to all have hospitals anyway, so it's going to be more of a scenic choice of hospital as opposed to like something that's necessary for those systems to actually work. So that's neat. So the following cards have been removed from release view. So ship interior object container streaming. So this feature is being rescheduled due to other core tech tasks taking a higher priority. For this reason, we're removing this card from release view until plans for the future have been finalized. Alright, so that's all for this week on the roadmap roundup. Wow, that was a lot. That was a lot. A lot of information to take in there. Really cool that we're getting to see a few more of these ships that, you know, people have pledged for a while back now actually making their way onto the roadmap. It is slated for, you know, Q2 of next year, but at the same time, it's there. We're getting the Orion, we're getting the Lynx, we're getting the Genesis Starliner. So yeah, who knows? Maybe we might even see that Starliner in the Horizon showroom. Not like in 315 or whatever, but you know, like when it gets released, where else is it gonna go? So that's gonna be cool to see eventually. Hopefully we get to see it there before it's flight ready. That'd be nice. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff with this roadmap. A lot of things indeed. I think one of the things that I like the most about it really is, you know, like the ammunition and stuff. The seeing them actually committing to plasma and how that is going to affect things, especially with like corridors and hallways and stuff like that, and being able to prevent people from like, you know, going further, and how incendiary ammo is supposed to actually also tie in with the fire system. The fire system we already know as well is supposed to do things like change the atmospheric properties of a room, so if you're not wearing a suit you can choke out and stuff like that. It's kind of crazy. Alright, anyway, so that's that for the roadmap roundup for again, August the 11th of 2021. Thank you so much for watching. If you were watching on Twitch live with me, thank you. We'll continue doing stuff in a second. For those watching on YouTube, thank you as well. Please consider supporting the channel by either subscribing here on YouTube, on Twitch TV, on our Patreon, and thank you to all our Patreons here on this invisible list. People on Twitch are wondering what the heck is about. Until next time though, guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, be good.